Today's video is going to be entirely colour palette inspiration for future projects. I have had a lot of people reach out to me just to say that they have no clue when it comes to choosing colour palettes. They really struggle. I've had some previous videos where I've talked about how I choose my colour palettes, but I thought I would make a video with a bunch of preset, pre-made colour palettes that you guys could use for inspiration. This means you don't have to worry about following the rules that I do to reach a colour palette. Just choose one that you like from what is already done. I'm Jessie of Crochet by Jessie, and let's get into today's video. With today's video, I have tried to do a selection of different colour palettes which all have different vibes. And because of that, I put them under a bunch of different categories. The first category that I am going to talk about is earth tones. Here are some examples. I really like earth tones personally. You can tell because I'm literally wearing so much brown at the moment, but earth tones are going to consist of kind of like creamy browns, light browns, dark browns, lots of different greens, kind of colours similar to that without still being a little bit of like a pop out colour. You don't really have that as much when it comes to earthy tones. It's a seamless colour palette. It's very nice. It's quite subtle. It can be very classy. And this is just a really nice comfort colour palette that you can kind of rely on. You'll see there are different variations, and sometimes there's one that has a bit more of a distinct colour palette than others. But for the most part, earth palettes are such a go-to when you really enjoy green, for example, or if you want to make a project that you want to wear a bit more often, so you don't want it to have as many colours that really do pop out. If you're going for subtle, this is a good kind of colour palette selection. I then have two different categories, which is under the overall branch of just warm colour palettes. The first colour palette is sunset kind of vibes, which are these ones here. You're going to be seeing lots of oranges and rusty tones, and sometimes a little bit of pink or purple and deep reds. And for me, this is very much autumnal, but with some of the extra colour pops in it, and you have that kind of sunset feel. This is great if you want to add a bit more warmth into your wardrobe, your outfits that you're wearing. You've got a bunch of colours in these examples that really do stand out, but they're extremely cohesive together, which is the main thing, because the biggest thing that people can struggle with colour palettes is having that cohesive nature of all of them fitting well together, which can be very difficult if you're not really used to doing it. I really like colour palettes such as this because it's very, very warm and rich. For example, my Solace top literally matches this complete vibe because that's what I was going for. I wanted a sunset kind of vibe. I wanted deep, rich colours which add a bit of warmth to a piece, because the colour palettes you choose really defines what kind of vibe the overall piece has, whereas well, I'm using warm tones to kind of create a warmth and a warm feeling, and it can be the opposite when you're using cooler tones. The other category of colour palettes that I have under the overall warm tones is dual tones. Dual tones, dual colours, they are amazing. I literally took my inspiration for the Lithos jumper behind me on dual colours. They have such vibrancy and warmth, but again, you've got that cohesive nature. It's been proven that they go very, very well together. So you can always work on this as a project, in my opinion, which can be very, very fun and bright and bold, but also extremely wearable, because although they've got this deep richness when it comes to the overall colour, it's not so vibrant that it stands out too much as a piece that maybe you wouldn't want to wear on any occasion. This example here, I've got all of these amazing dual colours, and then I went for a really, really dark Americano brown to kind of just mute it down a little bit. So that one, for me, I kind of followed my rule when it was like add a neutral kind of colour throughout. So, and for me, I like to have neutral, like a neutral. I'm getting tongue-tied with that. So this one could have been an extremely bright piece, but I've had one colour just to kind of draw it together and kind of tone it down a little bit. But there's so much you can do with dual colours, and you have a really, really lovely, rich feeling at the end when using a colour palette like this. The next colour palette idea is very, very different to the previous two. And it's a colour palette that I am slowly branching into myself, so it's been very fun to have a look at. And that is pastel kind of vibes, and I've put spring underneath the same kind of thing, because for me, there's quite a lot of overlap. There's a lot of variety when it comes to pastel colours. It's not it's not basic, and I think it doesn't get enough credit with the variation that is possible, which you will see or hear. I feel like pastel colours have a really nice, delicate feeling to it. It's the way you do it, it can become very feminine, which is really lovely, very soft, very delicate. I'm literally working on a cardi design using a lot of the pastel colours now, which I'm really looking forward to, because I wanted to have a piece that is very, very different to everything else that I've made so far, and I wanted that kind of airy vibe, which I feel like pastel colours really do give you. And on top of that, the overall spring vibe, I feel like the spring colours are in the same kind of category as pastel colours, but they've got a little bit less of a muted tone to them. So you'll see the same kind of colours, but just a slightly more vibrant version of them. So when I'm talking about this, I'm still referring to those really nice bright, but still quite light pinks, yellows, greens, blues, purples, all of those kind of colours. You'll see the similarity between a lot of the pastel colours and the spring colours here. They work so well, and if you're looking for pieces to wear in springtime, pieces to just give you a little bit more of a uplifting, colourful feeling, this is a great kind of palette selection to go with. I need to do more colours using this because I tend to go for darker colour palettes for the most part. That's what I'm typically drawn towards. But I feel like spring is just so nice, and to have a piece that feels uplifting as you're wearing it, these really are great colours for that. The next category we're going to look at are the cool tones. The cool tones that I'm looking at, there's a variety. It's very hard to nail them specifically, I find, which is why I'm just giving you guys examples such as these ones here. But for the most part, there's a lot of blues that I'm finding entwined in most of these colour palettes, and it has just, you've got these gorgeous colours, and these shades are differing so much from maybe, let's say you've got pinks in the same category, well, in all the different categories, but the way the pink is used gives it such a different result. So a lot of these pinks here, you can tell they're not as bright or vibrant, and they're not pastel colours either. They've got that slightly colder undertone, which is going to have a very, very different piece in comparison to a lot of the warmer tones or the brighter colours that I've shown already. When I see these colours, I think a lot more about wearables that I'd want to personally wear during winter time. I would argue and say some of them would look very nice in springtime as well, but it really depends on how you mess with the project and what you really choose to do with it, and how you coordinate the colours in it as well. So these colour palettes, not only are each colour palette unique, but also how you choose to use it is going to be very unique as well. I need to get into using colour palettes like this a little bit more, because I feel like I tend to go towards the warmer tones purely because of having darker hair, but I really like cooler tones as well. So it's definitely something I need to look at. And let me know as well, I know I'm not done with my categories yet, but is there a specific category that you tend to find you kind of radiate towards when it comes to picking colours for projects? Because with me, I'm really, really getting into dual tones and kind of like earthy kind of colours as well at the moment. The final category is the one with the least logic. There's not really a lot of logic present. It's kind of a experiment and get a lot of things together and see if it works. And so because of that, I have labelled it as the wild card category. Here are a few examples of the colour palettes that I found, which for me really stood out. They were colour palettes I wouldn't necessarily have thought to put together, but for some reason it just works. A perfect example of this for me personally was choosing the colour palette for the Tesserae jumper. I just chose a hell of a lot of different colours, and I hoped they would all go together. And then when the yarn arrived, there were a few colours that when I held them all together, I just looked at and was like, nah. So there was a somewhat deep but still quite vibrant red, and for me it stuck out like a sore thumb. So I instantly went, no, that's not meant to be in this project. And sometimes you have that, and it's really difficult to explain the logic behind it and the science behind it, because there is none. It's just trial and error. And if you don't want to do the trial and error, then these are the perfect examples of really great colour palettes that maybe you wouldn't have ever thought of, which is understandable. There is just so much you can do when it comes to colour, which will absolutely transform anything and everything that you work on. I always say, but a perfect example for this is all of my patterns, because for example, the Eros jumper, I had such a crazy range in colours for everything. It was crazy. Every single example in that entire testing group, they looked so different. They were so amazing. And it illustrated just how different the design can be made to look based on what colours you choose to work with. And I personally find that really fun. I do also think that mosaic crochet is the chance to go really, really out there, because a lot of the time when you're working with crochet projects and doing traditional crochet, you're not going to incorporate that many colours into it, because it might look a bit mixed-matched if you do that. Whereas with mosaic crochet, the style of that form of crochet, the way it is worked up, in my opinion, it encourages you to go a little bit more out there, to choose 10, 15 different colours that you never would have done on a different kind of project. And then it gets your kind of like the cogs moving in your brain as to, okay, do you know what? This is really fun and this is really different. I want to do another project like this, but then what kind of colors do I want to create a completely different kind of vibe to what I've just made? I am hoping that all of you guys have at least taken something away from this video. Let me know what your favorite color palette from this video was and why, or just the overall category that you liked the most. Exploring with color is so much fun when it comes to making things from scratch, any kind of form of craft, whether it's painting, knitting, crochet, embroidery, all of that. So it's very, very fun to be able to give you guys some suggestions that maybe you were having difficulty with, because color can be stressful and confusing. And a lot of the time you think you're overthinking it when maybe it would have turned out beautifully anyway, but you never know. And so this video is just going to give you a little bit of a push. Maybe you had a color palette similar to one of the ones I showed you in mind, and seeing them all together, you realize they actually work quite well, but we'll see. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you want to see more like this, then do subscribe if you haven't already, and press the bell to be notified when my next video is up. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.